Hey guys, welcome to our video series of Ask Us Anything. We're answering questions around technology, the Bible, Christianity, sexuality, culture. Pretty much nothing is off limits. So let's go. Hey Andy, thanks for being here for our very first episode of our video series of Ask Us Anything. I appreciate you diving in and being able to answer some of these tough questions that we have. First of all, how are you doing? How's it going during COVID for you?
I'm doing great. And just to get clarity, this is the very first.
Yeah, very first one.
All right, man. I feel honored to be part of the very first. Life is going good for me. I live out here in Abbotsford, and I have been using my COVID board time to do lots of home renovations. So
All right.
it's been
Okay,
good and
cool.
bad all at the same time.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us, like, what are one or two things that you're doing in your house right now?
Well, right now we're actually putting in a new kitchen. So this
Okay.
is kind of like it's all been building to this moment where we've ripped out a bunch of cabinets and we're putting new cabinets in and everything. So
Okay, cool. Right
yeah,
on.
it's fun and terrifying all at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. True of any home renovation, I guess, in a way. So, like, people to you, like you may be familiar to some of our young adults that we have in our community, and you may not be familiar. You were with us a couple of years ago when we brought you out for our Think series, and we answered the question, "What does it mean to be human?" So, for those that you were not familiar to, why didn't you kind of introduce yourself a little bit more to them, and so they can get to know you?
Yeah. So my name's Andy Steiger, and I run a ministry called Apologetics Canada. And perhaps maybe the most important thing to know about me is I'm married to a beautiful Canadian woman named Nancy. We've been married for 19 years, coming up on 20 in September,
Wow,
which is
that's huge.
crazy. And I have two kids, a 13-year-old named Tristan and an 11-year-old named William. Love my boys dearly. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, so I am an import. And although I've lived now in Canada longer than I lived in the United States, so
Okay.
I think I'm more Canadian than American these days.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that's kind of the main thing to know about me. I guess with regards to the topic of the Human Project and stuff like that, that's a subject that's very important to me, as I just recently completed my Ph.D. in that subject, and so
Well, yeah,
yeah,
and you
so it's
had
important
a
to me.
book that came out this past year, that was around that question and that project that you did. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I did something I shouldn't have done. I took on a book project while I was completing my PhD.
Oh, dang.
Uh, and which was funny, by the way, because I had to keep that a secret from my advisors. I didn't breathe a word of it until the end. When it was published, I let them know and I sent them a copy. So I knew they would be far too angry with me if I let them know that I did that on the side.
Yeah.
They want 100% of your attention. They're not interested in sharing you with any other projects. So it was that was kind of funny. But yeah, it's a book called Reclaimed: How Jesus Restores Our Humanity in a Dehumanized
Mm,
World. And the book looks at four questions, specifically how we get the question right and how we get the question wrong.
mm,
Actually, it does it in reverse. How do we get it wrong? How do we get it right? So, what is human? What's the value of human life? What leads to human flourishing? And how should humans live?
okay.
These are, I
Sweet.
think, are really critical questions
Mm-hmm.
upon, given the current state of our culture, that we as Christians in particular, we really need to know the answer to those questions. We need to be well grounded in
Yeah.
humanity.
Yeah, I so appreciate you not just being able to jump on this conversation that we're having and answer these questions that we have that have been given to us as young adults, kind of put them in and the questions that they're wrestling with, but also you being hugely influential to me just around that question of what it means to be human. You've reshaped my thinking, and so I just really appreciate you diving into that, being obedient to what Jesus has for you in that way, and being putting out many resources, not just a book, but there's other resources as you continue the conversation around that question. It's very critical for me as a pastor to be able to have those resources as I have those conversations with other people. So thank you for being here, and thank you for everything that you do with Apologetics Canada. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you, Stu. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
By the way, I remember when I came out to your church, you taught me a little bit about the importance of human value as well. When I don't know if you remember this, but your janitor got locked out of the building, and we had to race back to
Yeah.
get him because he was locked out of his car.
Yeah.
I that's when I came up with this analogy in my mind after being in Edmonton, that when you live in places like Edmonton, there's like especially in the winter, there's like a death clock. And
Oh
as
yeah.
soon as you step outside, that death clock starts counting down. Like you
Yeah.
going
You feel the
outside
cold.
in the
Yeah.
winter in Edmonton, you're transitioning. You can't stay there.
Yeah.
You got to move from one place to another.
Yeah.
Aaron, I've never forgot that when we had to race back to get him, because I'm like, why do we got to go get him? He's like, well, he'll die.
Yeah. Because you came on a weekend that was just crazy cold, and,
It
and
was a
there's a dump
really
of
cold week.
snow. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of normal for us in that way. But yeah, again, thank you so much for being here. I want to be able to dive into our first question. So you ready to go, Andy?
Yeah, let's talk.
Okay, cool. So do you think Jesus followers should be able to put out on social media and make known their religion and their views? If yes, like what is a good way of doing so?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question with regards to our social media driven culture, and a culture in which we can let anybody know everything that we're thinking.
Mm,
It's kind of interesting, because I once heard somebody say it's kind of like we can now virtually, if you will, walk around to our neighbor's house, and knock on their door, and they open it, and then we proceed to tell them what we think about politics, what we think about religion, and did what we ate last night for dinner, and where we went on vacation. And so, what I mean, it's kind of weird if you think about it,
mm-hmm.
that we could tell people, whatever we want. Some stuff they perhaps want to hear, some stuff that they perhaps don't. But, you know, I, 'cause it's kind of interesting, Stu. I'm actually curious your thoughts on this question as well. I know this is about asking me questions, but I hope this is more of a dialogue, because I'm
Yeah,
curious,
absolutely.
how you're even wrestling with this as well. Uh, because the way that I lean with regards to this stuff is, on the one hand, I think, yes, you should be able to share what you think on social media. You should be able to share your religion and your views. The challenge, though, that we live in this world right now, that it's like you can say certain things on social media, but not all things, right? Because we very much live in a shame-based culture right now,
Mm,
where it's kind of like you can say those things that are correct to say, which just seems to be a moving target of what you can and can't say, to such a degree that you can even lose your job over what you post and
right.
stuff like that. I don't know, like, it seems a little extreme at times, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think probably that's where the heart of the question is coming from. Of just there's probably is a fear of going, if I put myself out there, what I believe or my opinion on certain things, then I'm just going to get all this backlash. And I think many people have experienced that during this past year, like of the well, not hundreds, but many different topics that has happened during 2020 and 2021 already, and just that there is a um I think there is, as I have conversation, I think of myself, there's a fear of putting things out there. Just you don't know what kind of response that you'll get in that way.
Yeah, well, like, it's just become, the online community has just become so toxic,
Yeah.
is one of the major challenges that we have. And then because there's some people that just, what they post isn't even, it's just, there are those people that just post things that are outright racist as well,
Right. Right.
right? And then, so you got to deal with that. But so on the one hand, though, it's like you could start, controlling what everyone says, but then all you do is just force people onto different platforms, like we're already seeing,
Yeah.
where then they just surround themselves with a type of tribalism that, you know feeds their view. So by the way, I saw this the other day. One of the things I love doing is reading different news agencies and then reading their comments and whatnot,
Yeah.
because at one hand, I just find it amusing, because it's like you've walked into a different universe. Like, right now
Mm.
is a great time to read Fox and CNN, and then if you want to go to a third universe, throw the BBC in there. Figured you would appreciate that.
Yep.
But the stuff they're reporting on is just completely different. But here's my point being, I was reading a comment in which just one person was just outright racist in their comment on this specific article, and somebody was critiquing what they said, and then they said to that person, oh, you know what, you would actually be better if you went to this other news agency
Oh,
because
wow.
your views are going to fit in nicely over there, you know. And it's like
Yeah.
that's how divided we're becoming,
Right.
which is not healthy at all.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think right now that Satan is winning. There's a quote from a movie. I think it's from A Few Good Men. It's like Satan's greatest achievement is convincing people that he doesn't exist, which is still true. But I think right now he's having a heyday, particularly within Christians, dividing people
Totally.
in that way. And so for me, the as I think about this question is gotta ask the question of my motivation. Like when I share stuff, why am I doing it? Am I to try and push something in someone's face? Am I trying to convince someone or twist their arm, or I genuinely want feedback from people? I want to dialogue healthy about this. So motivation is a big thing for me in that. And I think if people check their heart before posting stuff, then you can answer the question, no, this is not a good thing, or timing to share, or yes, this is, because it's, Jesus says, it's about what comes out of us, like in our hearts. That's the most important.
uh, Stu, I think this is such an important point that you're making. You and I could come to a family dinner and sit around the dinner table, celebrating Thanksgiving or whatever it is, and we understand, there's certain talks that are appropriate in that situation and some that aren't, and that you have to show discretion. Well, in the real world or virtual or social media, right? You have to show discretion. And that's
Yeah.
where I think a lot of people lack. So I think that's such an important point. But here's another point though that I think is also important to throw in the mix. And that is how you share things and how you
Mm,
interact with people is incredibly important. One of the things I share with young couples when I do like premarital counseling is that having arguments or getting in a fight or whatever when you're married, that's not abnormal. In fact, that's quite normal and healthy.
yeah.
Having the argument's not weird or bad. It's how you argue that can become bad,
Yeah.
right? Like how you know, what kind of rules you have around the ways that you engage with human beings,
Yeah.
like not hitting them, not using foul language, right?
Yeah.
Verbally abusing them, these sorts of ways where we're in like premarital counseling, we're talking about, okay, how do you argue with the gloves on? Well, I think one of the things that a lot of people need to think about is how do I have a social media presence with the gloves on, if you will?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do
That's
I
good.
treat people with respect and kindness, and what things are appropriate and when are they appropriate, showing discretion? And sometimes, and I kid you not, Stu, I do this all the time. Before I post things, whether it be with Apologetics Canada or personally, I am always checking with staff, my wife, friends, and be like, hey, just give that a read. What do you think?
Yeah.
Just to make sure at the very minimum that I'm communicating clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I appreciate that so much because it speaks to the heart of things, and it speaks to the trying not to be just quick on things, or just going, hey, I want to be quick to respond, or I haven't had any discernment process in this. And there's just an easy thing to do is like, hey, can you check this before I post this? Or like, can you help me critically think through this in that way? And I think that's just an important word, not just for young adults, but just all of humanity right now, just being able to check ourselves before we do things, and before we post anything, even in a conversation. And we just got to be careful of the toxicity around it. And it's not necessarily we're saying, hey, don't do this, or you can 100% do it. It's checking motivation, and it's checking how we're doing it. That is the critical points that we're making.
Yeah. Am I adding to the toxicity or am I decreasing it? Here's one other that I want to throw in the mix though for young adults.
Okay.
And this is probably one of the most important things I think I could share for some young adults. It's called wisdom in posting. Yeah, we could call it social media wisdom. And let me just tell young adults two things that you need to be wise about. One thing that you need to be wise about is that these days, when an employer looks at your resume, I'm telling you, this from experience. As soon as I see your resume, I don't even read that full resume. And Stu, you know this. What
Yes.
do? I go
Yeah.
check you on social media
100%.
first, 100%, before I even read the full resume.
Yeah.
I want to know what kind of a person you're like on social media. And I am amazed at literally the stupid things that young adults and people in general will post, not thinking about if this is going to help them with a job or
Yeah.
not, like that
Yeah.
this could be actually detrimental to their future.
Yeah.
And let me tell you another one too. This one, because by the way, for young adults, I know that this is also true of getting scholarships.
Yeah.
This is true of getting into schools. More and more, they're checking you on social media. And here's the last one, and I know this from experience as well. Uh, when you are looking for a place to rent one day, and trust me, you might be living at
Mm.
home now, but one day you're going to want a place to rent. And I'm telling you that what they're going to do is they're going to check your social media.
Yeah.
And so like, here's the wisdom I'm talking about. So I have a rental property that I rent out. Okay. And I went to rent it out. I used Facebook Marketplace, and I went to check out these people who inquired. And you look at their profile, and I can't believe the stuff that I'm seeing people post,
Right.
where they'll post the parties that they've had. This is the kind of just wisdom I'm talking about here,
Yes. Yes.
right? About them drinking, partying, and stuff. And like, I'm hoping that your young adults aren't doing that, but I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of discretion. Okay, first of all, should you be doing that? But then
Yeah.
second of all, like, what level of wisdom are you showing online, if any? But here's my personal favorite. I had one person, though, what they posted online was that they didn't think that uh, they had posted a whole bunch of stuff about how they didn't want to pay their rent, and how they thought the government should take care of rent and stuff like that. I'm like,
Like, I'm not going to put you in my rental.
yeah, you can imagine who went to the bottom of the list. I mean,
Oh,
come on.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But sadly, though, a lot of people don't think about this just from a very pragmatic point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you're saying we need to act with wisdom, and just even you saying that is a wise point. But I want to encourage those that are listening that we shouldn't not post because of fear of just going, hey, I don't really want people to know I'm a Christian or know my views because I don't want the backlash, or I don't want to force myself on people. Jesus very much publicly put himself out there with wisdom. Like, he told people not to, even the demons, don't tell people that I'm the Son of God in that way. So we shouldn't hide away. We need to be in places to be able to be the light that we are called to in our identity. And so, but in doing so, we just need to exercise discretion and wisdom and discernment and check our motivations as we do that. As we wrap things up in this, Andy, like, any last piece of advice, encouragement, just around this question for those that are listening?
Well, let me just throw a little bit of gasoline on it real quick here. Just these are complicated issues that we have to think through. In Manitoba recently, a medical student was removed from the school for posting on abortion.
Oh, wow.
And that student removed those posts and even apologized, which I am amazed by,
Yeah.
and has not been allowed to come back.
Wow.
And because they're saying you haven't changed your view. And he's like, yeah, I know. But I do just want to throw it out there. I mean, Christians need to be aware that that's the kind of culture that we're living in right now. And
Yeah.
it's going to definitely require wisdom on your behalf. And sometimes you're going to need to pick a battle, and sometimes you're going to need to be wise on what battles you're going to pick and when you're going to pick them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
so good.
listen, I just wanted to just to make you aware that's a current court case that's going on,
Wow.
and that I think as Christians we really need to put our voice out there, or else that's the kind of fear that we're going to have to live with to a far greater degree than just wisdom. This goes beyond wisdom to a level of persecution we've never seen before that we've
Yeah.
got to be aware of.
Yeah, I so appreciate you sharing that, because that's very tangible for what is happening right now in spring of 2021 and reality of here in Canada. And sometimes when we just don't see that going on, we just don't be able to have the scope of understanding. So I really appreciate you giving that as an example of reality in that way. And I just think of sometimes there's times that social media is good to share things, but a lot of times these conversations that we desire to have on social media, maybe it's just better for in-person conversation, like around a
Or
table
maybe you
or
need
in a
to wait until
porch.
you're done with medical school. Sadly,
Yeah.
you know, you might have to be, you might be in that situation, or you need to be ready to pick a fight.
Right.
It could go either way, but
Yeah.
at least you need to be aware what you're stepping into with
Yeah.
what's going on right now.
Yeah, don't be flippant about things. We got have greater awareness. But I appreciate so much, like this has been a great conversation and kicking off this new series that we're doing. I appreciate you diving in and being able to answer this first question that we have, and I look forward to being able to grow you with some more here in a little bit. So thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this conversation where we answered questions in our Ask Anything series. Make sure that you're following us on social media, and if you got a question, you can head on over to the link in our profile and be able to submit your question, and you never know, maybe we'll be answering yours next. See you next time.